Morrill Scott here, coming at you with another episode of the District H podcast. Today I have the pleasure of Coach Miranda, joining us here. Miranda, how you doing?
Hey.
There we
Excited
go.
to be back
At it again. So today I wanted to cover some nutrition topics, and I know you and Robert are two nutrition coaches. I've seen a ton of new before and after pictures. There's a couple of different testimonials that people have been putting out. How's the whole nutrition thing been going?
It's been going. I think actually I just realized that now that it's October that Robert and I have been here for 2 years now. So it's kind of just recently reflecting on that. I'm like, can't believe it's been 2 years. But I feel like our nutrition stuff really took off the most, like actually after the pandemic. I don't know if everyone was just kind of realizing like, I think at least during that time in the shutdown, I think that was one thing that people could kind of focus on that they could control was like their nutrition. Obviously there was everything else going on that we couldn't control. So maybe that had something to do with it, maybe not. But we've had a couple nutrition challenges here and there. A lot of couples that are starting to do it now, and it's been really great. I think we've had a lot of clients that have seen a lot of progress, and not even just that, but even if it hasn't been like a huge transformation, so to speak, I think everyone has learned a lot of like habits or whatever that they can kind of take with them too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have seen a couple of couples joining and doing it at the same time. So that's good that you have that built-in accountability partner along with it.
Yeah, for sure. It helps when, you're trying to do things and then you got someone in your household like, let's order pizza. It definitely makes it more challenging. Not impossible, but it helps when we're both kind of doing the same thing.
I'm pretty new here. I just, I joined up at District H in February, I think, of this past year. So I've missed out on a lot of the time that y'all were starting, and when you kick-started the nutrition and everything, and just recently joined the staff for coaching as well. So can you walk me through what nutrition coaching looks like from your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So usually we like to start with some sort of consultation, ideally doing it in person. Sometimes we can like schedule a phone call or something. But starting out with just a basic conversation, because like you can go online and probably like find some sort of macro calculator or something, it is really important to also, I think, establish a baseline with someone. So, understanding like, okay, not only what are your goals, which is super, super important, but also your history. Like, what is your diet history? Have you tried a lot of diets in the past that maybe haven't worked? Maybe you've been on the yo-yo train of like gaining and losing weight, trying to understand somebody's relationship with food. I also kind of like to understand like what kind of support system they have. Like we kind of were just talking about, like, do you have somebody at home, or is your family supportive of this? Like, would they talk about any sort of like roadblocks or struggles they could foresee kind of getting in the way of what we're going to try to do? So kind of just understanding the person a little bit. Of course, their goals are going to be super important, what they're trying to accomplish with this. And then as far as the process, we kind of just lay it out. We like to get an in-body scan for sure to start, so that we can understand where they're coming from a body composition standpoint. How much muscle mass do you have? How much body fat do you have? Because that's what everyone comes in for, right? Is like, hey, I want to lose weight. But most of the time it's like, okay, you want to lose fat and gain muscle, right? So getting that baseline with the in-body for the data, getting the background, the understanding, all that. And then the general process in a nutshell is we basically from there can figure out good macros for a person. So we can give you a prescription of how many grams of protein, carbs, and fat you should be eating each day, which will align with a caloric goal for the day. And then we have most people weigh, measure, log their food utilizing like a food scale, an app, we tend to go with MyFitnessPal just because that's the one, it's free, number one. And we have the most experience with that. So also, during that conversation, we're getting a background if people have ever done that kind of thing before, if they're open to it. Because that is like what we believe is the quickest way to see results. It's not the only way, but we like it for a lot of reasons. I mean, again, quickest way is always a nice thing, but it also helps you build calorie awareness, which is really, really important in regards to like moving forward and eventually getting out of something like weighing, measuring, logging your food. I think that's a big misconception, is that like, okay, we're doing it for forever, which is not our ultimate goal. Like I always tell my clients straight up, I hope you fire me at some point, probably a couple of years from now, hopefully, because it takes some time. But that's kind of the general process. And so we'll give them a macro prescription each week. Then we'll check in with them with an email check-in that has like a list of different questions. So we'll talk about like their weights, of course, data points. We want to see what's going on with the body composition. We'll have them get an in-body scan each week, again, for another data point. But then there's also other check-in questions regarding like stress level, how your sleep was, how your training and exercise and recovery was that week. I also like to throw in anything that was like super awesome that happened that week, a win, any other struggles, things like that. But that's a general baseline process. We also have like a Facebook group that we have our clients in, so we can just kind of share different like tips, tricks, recipes. Like, hey, I found this super awesome, like 5-calorie ketchup or, something random like that too. So, and then we just check in each week and go from there and make adjustments as needed. Each week we'll do a check and response. So your coach, either me or Robert, will go through your email with you. It's kind of cool. There's like we do a little video so you can see us, you can see our screen where we'll go through your check-in with you. Go through your food log from that week, make any changes, make any suggestions.
Awesome.
Give feedback,
yeah, pretty comprehensive, which is good. And you mentioned with that, people might come to you with the goal of, hey, I want to lose weight. Maybe it's more specific as far as body composition goals. What do you see as the main goal of nutrition coaching?
Yeah. I mean, I get that a lot. Like I just want to lose weight, but I think there can be many different goals. My goal as a coach is very simply to educate my clients, because I think there's so many misconceptions and misinformation, especially in the nutrition space. Like nowadays you can literally go on Instagram and get some sort of health advice from anybody who claims to be a health or fitness or nutrition expert. And then you just go along with it. And so my main goal as a coach is to educate people properly, to get you to a point where you know how to properly fuel yourself. And so, yeah, whether your goal is to lose weight, maybe you actually want to gain weight, maybe you want to gain muscle. I have actually a client who wants to do that. Or your goal can even be literally as simple as, I want to learn how to best eat for my body personally, because everyone is different and everyone needs different things. And so that's kind of my goal, is to help you get to that point of you eventually know how to eat for yourself, to just be a healthier and better version of you. Yeah, no,
that's a really good point. You mentioned during that, hey, anyone can go on Instagram, see an influencer, and they're like, hey, here's my diet tips. I'm, drinking these teas that make me shed weight or whatever it is, right? So there's obviously a ton of marketing behind these more, I guess you could call them fad diets. So how do you think that marketing is affecting people's expectations of nutrition coaching and the results?
Oh, yes. I love this. This is a great question. Fad diets honestly just make me so annoyed at this point, because I think it creates highly unrealistic expectations that, you'll see, like you gave the example of a juice cleanse or something like that. Or I've seen in magazines, like lose 10 pounds in whatever days, in 10 days. Like that's absolutely ridiculous, and maybe it's doable, but it's not sustainable. And so I think it really frustrates me because it puts these expectations in people's heads that these things can happen, and it is a quick fix, and it is an instant gratification, magic pill kind of thing. And sorry, but it's really not, like the same thing goes with what we're trying to do in the gym here. Like, if you could just take a pill and all of a sudden have all the muscle and like be able to do pull-ups and all that stuff, like, yeah, that'd be nice, but that doesn't exist. And the same thing goes when we're talking about nutrition. So it just puts those unrealistic expectations in people's minds. And the truth of the matter is that this is going to take time. It's also going to take effort, and it certainly is worth it. But like, there's really honestly no way to get around that stuff, especially if, maybe somebody's, like I mentioned earlier, kind of getting that history. Maybe somebody's coming from a place of they've already tried every diet. They've done the juice cleanse, they've tried keto, they've done paleo or whatever else, Whole30, whatever. And they're still not losing weight, or maybe they've lost all the weight and they've gained it back. And that's the main issue with these fad diets too, is because it's a quick fix. It's like, okay, do this right now, or drink this right now. Or even if it is something like a meal plan, which is a little bit better, what happens though when we take that away from you? So like, what happens if you're on a meal plan and you go on vacation and your meal plan's gone? What happens if you're on this juice cleanse and you decide to eat food again? Because that's kind of part of life. What happens if you go keto and you decide that you would like to eat a carb again in your near future? You're gonna gain the weight back, which is why these diets sometimes do work. They get you to lose the weight really quickly, but they also aren't sustainable long term, because most of us like to eat carbs. Most of us like to eat food, so that's kind of what our whole nutrition program is about, is getting rid of diet culture and all that craziness, fad diets, and working on building like long-term lifestyle habits. Because again, you're going to eat a carb again. You want to be able to find a balance in your life where you are hitting your goals, you're losing the fat or the weight or whatever it is. And you're also still like finding ways to enjoy small treats here and there, or enjoy a date night with your spouse or partner. And, it's about like habit change. There's usually...
You're good. You're good.
Sorry, I'm kind of rambling on here.
Keep it coming.
These fad diets get me going. But like, if you think about it, there's usually something that led to why you've gained weight in the first place, or why you've gotten to the place that you're probably unhappy with, which is why you want to make a change, right? And so it's those habits that have led you up to this point to get you there. And for some reason, we lose sight of that, and we think like, oh, well, I can just keto diet or fad diet my way out of it. But no, you have to look at what brought you there and go back to those habits of like, okay, let's look at these and let's look at changing these habits. And that is how you create sustainable,
I really like the
results.
aspect of sustainability, and that carries over for any habit, right? So you can be in your fitness routine, which for me, that's why I left doing more bodybuilding types of things into functional fitness, was just I didn't find it to be super sustainable. And when you're talking about nutrition, you're right. Some of these things, it's like, oh, lose weight super fast, super cool. But take the example of like an MMA fighter, right? They lose 20, 30 pounds of water the day before a fight and gain it all back. It's kind of, some of these things are very applicable, similar to that. And it's not necessarily achieving the goal that they set out to commit. So is the goal really losing weight? Is the goal really changing your body composition? Is the goal really to maybe, completely change your habits? And so I think that is something, important to think about as they're starting to look into nutrition, is about that sustainability. So I think that was a great way to put it. Yeah, of course. So now what exactly, so we kind of talked about it, they're not sustainable. Could you maybe give some examples of your nutrition clients now? Maybe they have tried some of these fad diets before, or maybe some of the people who are listening have kind of gotten caught up in that. And again, it's not I'm not ragging on people for it, because people are going to these types of diets in order to achieve something. They're going there to try and be better. They know they want something about their fitness, but they might not know how to get there. And that's pretty normal. I mean, even talking about coming to the gym, there's an information gap because there's so much information out there and you don't necessarily know where to get it from. So are there kind of common examples you've heard from your clients about those fad diets and maybe where they're getting it wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like we've all heard, to lose weight, you just gotta like move more, exercise more, eat less. And like from a science standpoint, it is really as simple as like calories in, calories out. But there's lots of other things that can go into that. Like, for example, if you're coming in and you're one of those people that have done a lot of those yo-yo diets or fad diets, your body's like gone through a lot if you think about it. It's quickly dropped weight, it gained it back. And maybe you've done that multiple times. Maybe you've done that while also doing like cardio or something, not really any strength training. And so your body can sometimes get like damaged from that stuff. And so sometimes when people and clients come in, if they've had a history like that, sometimes the best thing for them is to first almost be at like a maintenance level calories, or maybe even slightly above that, and focus on building muscle and getting stronger and getting the body to a safe place where then it feels like it can shed weight or cut fat, which I think is something that people don't necessarily like think about, because we were always taught like, hey, jump on the treadmill or elliptical, do a bunch of cardio. That's how you're going to lose weight. But if you've done that and you've lost weight, but you've primarily lost muscle, you can kind of think of like the skinny fat we always like to refer to on that, which is just a very true thing. Your body may not be in a great place to lose a ton of fat right now because your body needs to feel safe to do so. And the same thing can happen with other things like sleep and stress, which is why we always put those in our weekly check-ins. Because like if you're not sleeping, maybe you work night shift or whatever reason you're sleeping 3-4 hours a night and you're trying to get your body to lose fat, it's going to be really, really hard. Not that it's going to be impossible, but if you combine that with like, you're always super stressed out, you're highly stressed with your job or whatever else, it's going to be hard to be in a fat loss phase. And so I think that's something that people don't think about either, that it's like, okay, I just need to not eat anything and I just need to like run all the time. But no, there's so much more that goes into it. Like you need to be eating an adequate amount of protein. Yes, you should be exercising, but it should be primarily strength training, again, based on your goals. But, your body needs to feel healthy and feel safe in order to go into those kind of phases.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I'm pretty sure most of the people, especially people who have no background in fitness or working out, probably don't even know that. Right. They do think of it as, and in some ways it is calories in, calories out, but you're right. There's all these different variables that affect it. How is your body responding to that stress? How does that affect your body composition? And I think that's a good point too, is, if you're saying, hey, I want to lose weight, in reality, you're saying maybe I want to have less fat on my body. You're not going to know what you're doing unless you kind of have those weekly check-ins, unless you use the InBody machine to try and see where you're at, muscle wise, body fat wise, everything like that. So, we mentioned trying to kind of go through a phase of maintenance before going into a phase of, hey, we're going to try and change your body composition. How do clients usually take that, since that may have extended their ideal window of opportunity for losing weight?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, not everybody coming in has to go through that. It really just depends on your background, which is why it's super important to have those conversations up front, as well as like, maybe if somebody else has a very time specific goal, like they're trying to get in shape for their wedding or something like that, it could be a little bit different. But for most people, if they're coming in quote unquote as obese or something like that, and they've had this background, it can be really frustrating and hard to relay that to a client because they're like, well, I'm unhealthy, or like, my doctor says I need to lose weight or whatever. And it's like, no, I totally understand. I get it. I honestly empathize and feel for those people because, like you mentioned earlier, they're trying to do the right thing. They're going to these maybe fitness claimed professionals, or they're looking up the information. Like, they're trying to do the right thing. But unfortunately, whether it was a marketing scheme or just maybe somebody who didn't exactly know what they were doing or whatever, like, has led them to this place. And so it is very difficult, but we always try our best to like communicate to the clients why it is so important to go through these kind of phases and remind them that like it is a long journey. It's going to take time. My method is always to be honest and straight up and straightforward with my clients. Like, this is going to take a while, but I promise you it'll be better off in the long run. And I think it's just, that's the important piece, is reminding them of like, hey, I'm here for you. And this is what's going to work long term. And, you know, reminding them too, like, hey, remember that journey you went through where, yeah, you lost it, but you gained it right back. Like, remember all the times you went through that. Okay, we're going to do it different this time. And yes, it's going to take you longer, but like a couple years from now, you'll look back and be like, oh, wow, like that was the right thing. It's, you just have to be patient. And, you know, unfortunately, we do live in a world of instant gratification right now, just with how society is. So that makes it even more challenging, but true results take time and they take effort. Like, even myself, like, I never really got to a place where I was, you know, very overweight or anything, but with me and my goals, it's taken me years to put on like the muscle that I put on. And I mean, I still want to put on more, of course, but it takes time. It's taken me like 4 years to get to where I'm at. And I think just reminding people of that is,
100%. So
really
yeah,
do.
and I think it's good to look at it as more of a journey as opposed to a destination. And that definitely makes it a lot more sustainable. For me, it makes it a lot more fun, but it can be hard. And we were talking with last week with Robert about this in terms of more people's on the fitness perspective. If we're viewing it as a journey, we know this is going to be a long process. What are some small wins that we can take along the way to keep people engaged, interested, feeling good about themselves?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why we put in the check-ins, like, what was one win from this week? Because, yeah, maybe the scale hasn't moved in a while because we are in a maintenance phase and we're focusing on building muscle or something else. But like, small wins could be maybe your pants are fitting differently. Maybe you have more energy throughout the day. Maybe you're sleeping better now. Maybe you're just a happier person and in a better mood because your endorphins from exercise. I've even had some clients recently say like, hey, you know, in the past, I used to just always have a bagel or a pastry for breakfast. And now I'm really having like a high protein breakfast that keeps me more full. Or even just eating breakfast in general. For some reason, that's always a thing that people tend to not really do. And so that can be a small win of like, hey, I'm eating 3 meals a day now, or I have more energy to keep up with my kids. I mean, there's so many small wins of this journey that come up. And I think that's why, you know, we like to put it in the check-in so that there's a specific chance to focus on those things throughout the journey. I mean, if you look at fitness too, like, it's easy to get so caught up in the day to day of like, oh, I didn't get a PR today. But if you look back and reflect, like, okay, but a year ago, did you lift that weight? A year ago, did you get upside down for a handstand? You know, same thing for nutrition. Like, a year ago, would you be eating that meal in front of you, or would you even be eating that meal at all? So it's great to reflect on that and just to, like you said, have the mindset of this is a journey. And, you know, there's always something I think to be learned with nutrition. Like, I'm a nutrition coach and I work with a coach because coaches need coaches, and that can be a separate conversation, but it's almost honestly like never ending. Like, I did say, I want you to eventually fire me as your coach a couple years down the road, but that's the thing, is it's a couple years down the road. Like, it's not I don't think nutrition coaching should be something where it's like, okay, I hire a coach for a couple months and then
Mm-hmm.
I reached my goal, I'm good. And okay, there are some people like that, but there's almost always a point where you're either trying to like optimize your body composition more or work on your habits more. So you're either trying to cut fat or build muscle. If we're talking body composition, you're always kind of
Mm-hmm.
flirting between those two phases. There's always a point too where there's maintenance. We already kind of talked about that. Or maybe your life right now is extremely stressful and you got like a million things going on. So maybe maintenance is just the best choice. But there's always something to be working on, or even if it's the side of habits. I think if you ask anyone like out there, there's some habit that they would probably like to improve on, right? Whether that's nutritionally or even of like, I
Mm-hmm.
should probably decrease my caffeine intake. There's something that we can always help with. And so I think that's an important point too, of not just getting in the mentality of like, okay, like I just want you to give me my macros. I got this. As your coach, we're here to support you in so many other ways too, like the habit stuff I mentioned, or even just maybe you want to compete, helping you navigate through like, okay, how do you lead up to a competition nutritionally? What should I eat at a competition?
Mm-hmm.
I think people get that wrong a lot. And so I just wanted to make that point as well, that like, there's pretty much always something
Yeah,
that
for
we can
sure. And I
help
think
you
that's
out
the good
with
point
too.
about, working with a real person, right? Because you're having these weekly check-ins. There's a relationship aspect to it. There's an accountability aspect, but there's also a ton of different options when it comes to nutrition coaching. Like you mentioned, for maybe the most basic would be, hey, I'm just going to search a macro calculator based on my body weight, what I want to do, what my activity level is, all the way up to, hey, I'm going to have a one-on-one nutrition coach, and they're going to check in with me every week. And obviously there's things above that. You want to hire a private chef? Great. That's sweet. I don't think we're going to do that for you, but I wish you the best in finding one. But what tips would you say, or like, is there certain things that you could point people to say, okay, here's where I'm at in my fitness journey. Here's what my goals are. Here's what's worked for me. Where along that spectrum do I need to be? Where do I need to go in order to get the results I want?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into that. It comes back to like the background, the goals. It's so individualized, and I think that's the missing piece right here is like, yes, you could go to some website, yes, you can go on Instagram, or there's like a lot of apps out there now that you can kind of do the same thing with, but nutrition is just so individualized that I think it's your best case scenario is always going to be to work with a coach, like whether that's remotely or in person or whatever. I think it's honestly your best bet to work with a real person, because then you can have those conversations about like what's working, what's not working, all that good stuff, because it is so important. Like you can have a client who maybe wants to be like vegan or vegetarian. And so that's a whole new challenge. Or somebody who's lactose intolerant can't really tolerate dairy or things like that. Like those are small things. But, just coming back to that, or somebody who works night shift, or somebody who works a job where they basically are really
Mm-hmm.
unable to eat for 12 hours. I've had a client who she literally was like, I can't eat. And so we had to get creative of
Yeah.
things of like, okay, can you drink? Like if you could have a high calorie smoothie, will that work for you? So it comes back to the human side of things. And this is so individualized that I think your best bet is always going to be to go with an actual person who can fit
Yeah, you
your
can't
individual
ask a
needs
spreadsheet too many
specifically.
questions. So that's a good point.
I mean, you could,
That's a fair
but
point,
you're not going
right?
to get a lot
So,
of responses.
yeah, so that's a good point. You're there and you can help handle those challenges with these clients. I mean, and I think it boils down to value again, and we've talked about this when it comes to fitness. As far as fitness in reality is free. You could have someone go walk outside, run, do functional fitness outside, get in the best shape of their life. That's possible, right? However, in Planet Fitness, LA Fitness, other places you can name drop, the cost isn't that great, right? But for a vast majority of the population, some people are going to find success in that and some people aren't. And I think it does ultimately come back down to, hey, this is more focused on you. This is a coach for you to help you achieve those goals. And it's almost that I think, fitness, and I think at this point also nutrition, can in certain ways kind of become more commoditized, where it is like, hey, this is free, you can do this, but it's still not working for people. So obviously they need to invest more into their health and wellness in order to get it, for some people.
Yeah, and I think too, I think there's also a misconception that people think they have to have a very specific goal in order to work on nutrition. And that's not true either. Like, we talked about all the different kinds of goals you can have. And we also touched on your goal can literally just be to learn about how to properly eat for yourself. Because how many times have we heard you can't out exercise a bad diet?
Mm-hmm.
That literally is true. You can't. And if you're already putting the time, the effort, and even the money into coming to a gym, don't you want to get the most out of that? And you're not going to, if you're not eating enough protein, it's going to be really hard for you to build muscle based on all the strength work you're doing. It's not impossible, but it's extra difficult, And so it doesn't even have to be a specific goal. Nutrition should be the foundation of everything that we do. And unfortunately, I think in our education system, we're highly lacking in that department. When have you ever taken a class to learn about how to properly eat for you? You haven't. Maybe some of us took a foods class or something in high school, but I didn't learn about that. And, it affects literally every single thing you do. So why would you not want to learn more about that? I think that's just another thing to think about or to relay to people is it doesn't have to be that you want to lose weight or gain weight or want to compete in a sport. You can literally just want to be a better version of yourself and a healthier version of yourself.
Yeah.
And learn about what that would look like.
That's a great point. And I think education and understanding the why and not just the what and the how is super important for sustainability. So as fitness professionals, what do you think we need to do outside of, let's say, a one-on-one coaching scenario to educate people?
Oh, good question. I think more things of what we're doing here with podcasts. I also would like for us to start just sharing more information in general. I think we do a really good job with our nutrition challenge. That's our main focus, honestly, with the challenge is educating people. But I think just building that trust, because like we said, there's so much out there that it can be hard for anyone to know who to trust or, with their bodies and their goals. And so I think building that and having those conversations, and that's why I always like to try to be honest and straightforward with people too. In that upfront conversation, this takes time and this takes effort. And if you're cool with that, I'm cool with that too. But, if you're, I've had to turn clients away in the past too. If this isn't a good fit, that's okay. But I want people to know that for this to work long-term, it's gonna be
100%
an effort on your part.
Spoiler alert, we're doing a lot during this month of October in order to, I think, increase the education, of our client base and also people who may be in the area and interested in knowing about fitness, or really anybody that stumbles upon it, right? So, trying to work on more educational content, whether that's through our website as kind of main pages, these podcasts that we're doing, blog posting, social media things that we can do, just putting out nutrition tips, that's going to be a focus for us, and, trying to figure out what works. And, I think that's something that a lot of people want. I think nutrition, especially for the people in the gym, I think from people that we polled, it was kind of an overwhelming, nutrition tips of anything. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. So we listened, and we're gonna put some out there. So be looking out for links and new content. And we're always looking for ways to keep people engaged, educated, getting closer to that goal. And ultimately, it's a group gym. We're here to have fun. social as well. So 100%. Is there anything else, Miranda, before we sign out for the day?
I don't think so. I think we touched on most of it. I think, again, just having that mind, like the correct mindset when it comes to this whole thing is huge. And I think it's a mindset that can carry over into a lot of other things in life. I know I suck at being patient. That's something I work on as a human, but just carrying that mindset into all aspects of life, of like knowing that when you put effort into something and you view it as a journey, like there's so many, it's so much more rewarding. Like imagine if maybe someday, who knows, we're going to actually get to a place where you can take a pill and look exactly how you want or whatever. But do you think you would feel the same?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think, yeah, you put it really well. The when you actually work hard for something, it is a lot more rewarding once you get there, and that's completely fair. And I think too, people might overestimate what they can get done in a month, get done in 3 months, 6 months, but I think a lot of people underestimate the progress they can make in a year, 2 years, 5, 10, right? And so I think that's important too, to look that far out, because I know personally, just with my own fitness journey, I could have never imagined I'd be here 5 years ago. And, it's just something to think about. You just underestimate yourself, but when you put it in the time, you put in the effort, you seek expertise, you try and find the right information, and you're intentional with it, good things can happen. Well, good deal. Well, thanks again, Miranda. Thank you so much for coming to talk with us here. Appreciate everybody listening in the District H family. Come reach out to us at the gym, on the website, however you need to get in touch with us. We'll see you next week for the next episode. Peace out.